Welcome back to Stray Trains. In this video, we take a look at a crucial aspect of railway operation in signalling. This video will go over how we can use signalling to our advantage when train spotting. Therefore, a disclaimer is needed to say that please do not take this video as any official material for learning signalling, as this video will only touch on important aspects for us to understand how we can use signalling to our advantage when out and about. Hope you enjoy the video. For the bulk of the video, we're going to take a look at 4 different types of signals. First are the 2 main ones, which you may have seen by the title just before, being the home signal and the automatic or auto signal. Automatic signals are basically pretty straightforward. It's in the name. They are automatic. They change by themselves. However, home signals, think of them as manual signals, as these have to be changed by a person. Home signals are typically found in the more important or busier areas of railway traffic. These include busy stations, such as in the city in Flinders Street or Southern Cross, there's plenty there, typically near junctions or where there are points, and at the end of lines or any areas where there are terminating moves. Now, the way to tell the difference between the two is quite simple. Automatic signals are diagonal to each other, and home signals are vertical to each other, like we see here. But the question is, why exactly does this matter? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Firstly, we're just going to quickly take a look at the actual colouring of the signals. In particular, 3 positions, firstly being red over red, second being green over red, and thirdly just being anything else. So what do these mean? Well, red over red's pretty straightforward. That means stop. Green over red means the track is clear ahead at normal speed. And anything else in between could mean something else, such as the track is clear ahead but must drive through at a reduced speed. The next signal could be a stop, but that really doesn't matter to us in train spotting. So why does this matter to us? Well, if it's an automatic signal, it will more likely than not revert to some sort of signal other than red over red once the track is clear ahead, which doesn't necessarily mean that a train is coming nearby. Whereas if the signal, a home signal, is changed to something other than red over red, it means a path has been set for an upcoming train. We'll put this into practice now. Sometimes there's been some comments on the channel asking, how do you know that a train was going to go to X? Well, this is exactly what I'm thinking. Let's head to West Footscray Station, where we have a Siemens train here. I was expecting for the Siemens train being on platform 1 that it was going to head towards Footscray. However, to my surprise, the signal lit up on the down end, which is on the summary side, which told me, because it was a home signal, that it had to have been set for this train at the platform. Now, even if the train wasn't idle at West Footscray, the thinking would have still been the same. Whereas if it was an automatic signal, it could have meant that this train was coming, or something else that I wasn't chasing on the day. Technically, this line was under occupation, which meant no other trains could have come by, but you get the point. So the overall point to be made here is, whilst there are home and automatic signals, it is important to know what a home signal is, as they generally give us a much better information of if a train is coming by. So that is something you definitely want to look at, and potentially deliberately position yourself when waiting for a train nearby a home signal. But what if you're behind the signal? Well, even if you're behind the signal and can't see what colours are actually being displayed, there is still a way to determine what the signal is. This white thing you see here is a trip arm. When it is raised, you know that its correlating signal next to it is red over red. The purpose of this is, if a train was to go through a red signal, this trip arm would hit the train and thus force the emergency brakes to be applied straight away. So even if you are behind a signal, if you see the trip arm up, you know that a train is at least not going to proceed past the signal. Whereas if the trip arm is down, that means the train can proceed past the signal. Whilst we don't know at what speed and in what conditions, we at least know that a train can pass. Whether you are train spotting or just travelling as a passenger, quite often at junctions, sometimes it could be confusing which train is coming next and where it is going to. And if we have no access to a passenger information display, for instance, if it's an empty movement or an untimetabled movement, using the signals is of great benefit. Let's take North Melbourne Station as a great example, as both on the city and suburban end, the up and down end, it has various routing that we can read from the signals. Let's start off on the city end. At North Melbourne Station on platforms 1 and 3, trains can either head via the loop to Flinders Street or run direct to Flinders Street via Southern Cross. In order to know if that is happening, we take a look at the signals and it's pretty straightforward. The arrow here represents which track it's taking. Because the arrow in this particular scenario is pointing to the right of platform 3, that means we can see that it's going to take the right track, and thus the train will take the city loop en route to Flinders Street. If the arrow was to the left, we would know that would run direct via Southern Cross to Flinders Street. On the suburban ends of things, there is something called a route indicator. That is a letter that we will see pop up near the signal. This represents which line the train will take. At platform 6, if we see an F, we know it's probably a Werribee or Williamstown service, as that train will be heading towards Footscray. If we see a K, that means it is most likely either a Flemington Racecourse or Craigieburn line bound train, K being for Kensington Station. Whilst it isn't necessarily the route indicator for the final station on a line, it does represent a station nearby. This particular service here was departing at platform 6 and was an Essendon bound Comenge, which of course would travel via Kensington. Taking a look at platform 2, the letter U is towards Upfield and Macaulay sidings, which is just off the beginning of the Upfield line. And the letter K is not used for Craigieburn, rather it is the letter E, which represents the eastern suburban lines. This is because trains towards Craigieburn line from platform 6 use generally the Broadmeadows suburban lines. As promised, we'll look at a total of 4 main types of signals, and well, these are the other 2. The first one we're going to look at is called a dwarf signal. It is a really small signal, and these are typically for moves in and out of sidings. Now, these are relatively similar in operation, besides of course their appearance, and the only major difference is if you do see a blue or purple light on them, that actually means stop or do not proceed. Dwarf signals can also be placed on home signals. Given the yellow indicator, the train may proceed. And the fourth type of signal we'll look at is called a banner indicator. This isn't technically a signal per se, but all it does is gives the driver, or in our scenario, ourselves, an indicator of what the next signal will be. A horizontal line represents red, a diagonal line represents yellow, and a vertical line represents green. Notice how there's 2 indicators to represent 2 lights. If we take a look here, we can see 2 horizontal lines, and then if you look a little bit further, the red over red signals. You will notice that these are very common on curves, as if they weren't there, it would give drivers very little vision and time to respond to the signal. So that is really what they are there for, but we can sometimes use them to our advantage. So for this final bit, I thought it'd be worth giving some insight into sort of what I'm thinking in these two scenarios based on the signalling. This isn't a right or wrong per se, but just what I was thinking at the times. This first example was at Newport Station, where there's a train travelling in the city-bound direction on platform 2. However, the home signal is at red on platform 2, and rather the platform 1 home signal is at proceed, which means I knew that this common train was going to come to a stop, because the train on platform 1 had the signal towards the city. The next clip is located at Spotswood Station. First up, we'll see a train pass by and then see what happens afterwards. Keep in mind that there must be a 2 signal length between trains, which can be best represented here, for instance. Now notice how this signal on our left here, W353, is diagonal, meaning it is an automatic signal. That means that as soon as this Siemens train hit 2 signals ahead, this signal changed to some sort of a proceed. But the signal between still remained at red over red. This would have remained at red over red at least until the Siemens train hit the next signal, which is out of view. It would have been nice to get the 3-carriage, 6-carriage Siemens crossover a bit closer, but what can you do? And there, did you see the signal now changed to yellow over red? Next up we have a city-bound Siemens. Bit irrelevant to the clip as we're looking in the suburban direction, but here it is. Now it is a little hard to see, but you will see very shortly once the Siemens hits the next signal, this signal becomes green over red, and then the second closest signal then changes from red over red to a yellow on the top. And we have now a down Werribee service coming by. You will notice that the train was travelling a little bit slower, and that was likely because the driver could see ahead at the red or the slow signals, and that's what I was thinking at the time. I was wondering how fast this train was going to go, because it has to, remember, keep that minimum length of at least 2 signals. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video and learnt a thing or two about the signalling, which might help you in the future, and I think we'll leave it at that. Cheers.